So then what is prayer for you?
The way that's been determined for me is what I've been trying to change from the way I was brought up. I was brought up with a very transcendent God, and prayer was basically conversation. I was raised with a God who was no different than an alcoholic father. And I think much of America believes that the God is no different than an alcoholic father. Here's someone who needs to be appeased. And how do you talk to an alcoholic father? Well, first of all, you walk on eggshells. You know, you don't want them to be angry. And you say flattering things to them so that they'll be nice to you. And then when you screw up, you cower in the corner and you do this kind of confessional thing that really is meant to appease them. But I had no sense of any kind of loving concept of God. The change for me came when I started working with a Benedictine spiritual director who began to talk to me about prayer as listening and the whole thing about being present. For me, that's prayer. If we were not doing this interview and I was out here, the birds I'm hearing now in the background, I would simply be sitting here, and for me, that would be almost a choir. They would be my choir, and that would be a prayer.
Is there a physical or a body aspect to prayer?
Yes, there is, in the sense that your head and your body have to be in the same place. Because for me, as long as my head's not there, or I'm involved in something that's why sometimes prayer doesn't work for me very well in church, especially if I'm being involved in leading the worship, because I'm not present. The first body aspect is there has to be a slowing down, a breathing in and a breathing out. And the breathing in and breathing out for me is receiving the moment, the present.
You have a 5-year-old. When you think about wasting time with God, well,
Yeah.
A lot of the time we spend with children kind of feels like time wasting. Is there anything you learn about Sabbath from your child?
What I learned from my child is indirectly about Sabbath. What I learned from my child is that he has none of those filters. And what I want to do as a parent is wait as long as I can before he puts those filters on. We train them too young to put those filters on life. It comes to him. He's full of that sense of joy in the present moment.
Are you doing things as a parent to try to maintain that a little bit longer, to consciously be different from the way that maybe your parents raised you?
Yeah, that's a battle because we find ourselves just falling into those comfortable patterns. But the first thing I try to do with my son, because the temptation is, your son is, 5-year-olds talk a lot. And the first temptation is just tune it out. Just sort of say something. Yeah, whatever. That's nice. I'm glad to know that. Even though you had no idea what they just said to you. So the most difficult thing for me is to consciously say, okay, I'm going to listen to you. I want to hear that. And so to engage that. And so that for me has been a great, difficult learning experience as a parent. This is a great story. And the trouble is I don't remember who it was about, but it was a famous person in England. It was in his diary or whatever. Terrible day, raining, sleeting, nasty, cold, and I had to take my son fishing. Never had to do it before, but I had to take him fishing. Thank God we got over it. Years later, unbeknownst to the son that this has been written in a diary, the son, writing his own diary, had this entry on that same day. Had the greatest day of my life. I went fishing with my dad. That's what I want to be present to as a father. Because the dad flat out missed it. He just missed it.
Can we talk a little bit about your new book? It's 7 Habits of People Who Love Life.
7 Habits of People Who Love Life. It's based on a Harold Kushner quote that said, we don't fear death. What we fear is coming to the end of our life and realizing we never lived. So I asked the question, for people who have lived a life before they died, what characterizes them? That's what the book is about. What characterizes such people?
What's the first one for you?
The first one is they know that life is sacred. They are literally intoxicated with this life. It happened to me when I was on a whitewater rafting trip with some friends, and we finished the rafting trip, and then I see this little flower growing out from under a ledge, and I was up on a bluff, and the guys were pulling the raft out, and so I get on my belly and stick my head over. I just was frozen because it was like a snow leopard, you know. I touched the falls of the iris like the face of a lover, and I realized that a Barbara Kingsolver line said, "A great many people will live out their days without ever seeing such sights, or if they do, never gasping." And I realized that's something that had been missing from my life, the ability to gasp, the ability to just be overcome with wonder. Because I was raised with the fact that this world meant nothing, heaven meant everything. And so we spend all of our time waiting to get to heaven. And Abram Heschel said, forget that. He said, "God, grant me the grace of wonder." I don't need to know the reason for it all. I just want to see the wonder of it all. People who love life, they know that prayer.
Do you think that's particularly difficult for men to be able to gasp, to appreciate beauty?
It's not only, well, it's difficult for men to gasp in the company of other men. We can gasp, but we have to do it privately. It's like that flower thing. I mean, you know, what am I going to say? Hey, guys, come check out this flower? No, I mean, it's a private kind of thing. But yes, we're culturally inculcated to not gasp. In fact, we drum it out of our kids, too.
So we need to do that. What's number two?
People who love life give no heed to public opinion. Where
did you learn that one?
How did I learn it? Or, well, I mean, I was raised with the "what will they think" kind of deal. You know, we're all raised with that "what will they think" kind of deal. And I mean, the one thing I love about the stories about Jesus, the New Testament stories, is Jesus was kind of a PR man's nightmare. You know, public opinion was not even on his radar screen. And people who love life, you can tell that they're not doing this because someone's thinking something about them doing this thing. I mean, one of the other habits of people who love life is this art of doing nothing. People who love life practice the art of doing nothing. They actually practice this Sabbath concept.
Another one is "allow the child in me a wide berth."
Kierkegaard said that laughter is a type of prayer. And I don't think we laugh enough. I think we take ourselves way too seriously. And I think the power of children is that unfiltered approach to life. When I have those moments with my son, it's the great gift my son gives me. They come out of left field. That I would have never found joy in that, or at least now as an adult, had it not been for his allowing me to do that.
Another one is "learn to want what I already hold." Difficult?
Well, yeah, of course it's difficult. I mean, the whole point is every single one of us, without exception, every single one of us have spent our lottery money that we've never won. We've all done it. We have all mentally spent lottery money because we all have imagined some other, you know, some Tuscan holiday and some Riviera thing. And the truth is that life is 401ks that go bust and children that are cranky. I mean, that's life. And the trouble is, how do you reconcile that?
So is that the practice of gratitude?
Well, yeah, in a sense. There's a great story about a fisherman who's smoking a pipe, just sitting by the river, you know. And the industrialist, the guy from the north, said, "You know, why aren't you out fishing?" He said, "Well, because I've caught enough fish for the day." He said, "Well, you know, why don't you go catch some more?" He said, "What would I do with them?" He said, "Well, you could make some money. I mean, for God's sake, you could get off your butt. You could go make some money. Then if you made some money, you could buy a boat. You don't even have a boat. If you bought a boat, good Lord, you could catch some fish. I mean, some serious fish. So you could make some serious money. If you made some serious money, you could buy a bunch of boats, a whole fleet of boats. You could have a business, hire a bunch of people, run your boats." "What would I do then?" He said. "Well, then you could be a rich man like me." He said, "What would I do then?" He said, "Then you can enjoy life." He said, "What do you think I'm doing right now?" It's that same old deal.
Another one is "delight in my friends."
People who love life, I mean, the lucky people in the world, the luckiest people in the world at the time of their death will be able to count their good friends on one hand. And the trouble is that in America, we don't know zip about friendship. We think of friends as people to spend time with when there isn't anyone else around that really matters. So what we do in our culture is we spend all of our time looking for a lover or a spouse. You look at reality television now. Every reality television show is about finding a lover or a spouse. That's how we measure success in this culture, and it's so wrong. Success is about the friendships that you grow in, that you are supported by, that you're challenged by. And if you do have a lover or a spouse, those friendships go with you. They're the dowry for every romantic relationship you're involved with. They're the best gift you can give any romantic relationship.
Can you talk about how the time that we live in, how's that affected your own spiritual journey?
It sounds trite to say that it scares me, because it does. What scares me about our country right now is that we don't understand humility. It scares me when we think we're right about something. That scares me. Charlie Brown, I love the Schultz thing, because Snoopy was writing a book about theology. And Charlie Brown said, "Oh, what's it called?" And the title of his book about theology is, "Has it ever occurred to you you might be wrong?" And so I asked myself, how can I begin to learn that sense of humility, for example, with my son, or with my wife, with my family, or with my community, my friends, or my church community? How does that infuse the way I live there?
So where do you go from here? What's next for you?
This whole thing about the art of doing nothing is really significant for me, and the reason it's really significant for me is because it's a personal issue for me. I'm married, but I know what it's like to have killed a marriage working hard for Jesus. I know what it's like to live an incredibly imbalanced life. I got this bee in my bonnet about the fact that we say we're imbalanced, but the way we balance is we add more stuff. What a culture we are. You have an imbalanced life, then we tell you to go buy something. Any problem you have, you got to go buy something. You either got to go buy something or do something. Now, what kind of sickness is that? I'm of the opinion that a little imbalance is not a bad thing. You show me a life that has passion, purpose, heart, and grace, and I'll show you a life well lived. Now, you show me someone who just is doing the balance thing, I'll show you an anal retentive tidy person. Now, which one do you want to be?